Coming up on this episode of Eye in Gauteng, government weighs in on the Uber meter taxi debacle. British American Tobacco highlights the economic wounds of illicit cigarettes. And job creation partnerships pave the way toward curbing unemployment. As we head into Transport Month, the escalation of violence between Uber and meter taxis in Gauteng continues to put a damper on the modernization of public transport in the city region. Lubabalo Mashikana reports.
Scuffles between Uber and metered taxi drivers seem not to end. Since January of this year, over 300 incidents have taken place in Gauteng alone. 86 of those occurring in and around Johannesburg, 4 in Ekurhuleni and over 200 in Pretoria.
The atmosphere is extremely tense, violent, and intimidation is felt by commuters and ordinary citizens around these transport nodes. So their lives are being threatened by this situation. So far, the police have arrested, the number of people who have been arrested by the police is essentially more than 200. There's been, the cases are at different stages, but there's no one who has essentially at this stage been sentenced. What I am worried about as the Premier of Gauteng is if this matter is allowed to continue, we can end up having violence that recruits people who are recruited, those who used to who carry out hits in the taxi industry, and some of them are the people who are involved in carrying out hits in some of the political conflict in KwaZulu-Natal. We don't want a situation where the people who used to carry out hits, hired assassins, are drawn into this. That's why it's a matter of great concern for us. One life has been lost. Many more people have been injured in these attacks. As I've indicated, they are close to 300.
The government has been engaging with the Uber and metered taxi drivers. But metered taxi drivers have made it clear that they will not rest until the government has stopped the Uber app.
We know that the minibus taxi operators, the meter taxi operators, and the 2,300 people who are operating as Uber operators, they are all in the business of raising income for their families. That we understand. There's high unemployment rate in our country. Government shouldn't be unreasonable and just clamp down on them. They provide a service, they earn income. All of them, we must ensure we help them to comply with the regulations and the laws. And those who really don't want the law enforcement agencies must clamp down on them.
The Premier of Gauteng, David Makura, announced a special committee and task force consisting of law enforcement agencies and intelligence services that will now deal with the matter.
As the Premier of Gauteng, I'm satisfied that the commitment made by both the Minister of Police and the Minister of Transport will help us over the next few months. In the coming week, they will have a meeting with with their counterparts in the province. The two ministers will meet with the Minister of, the MEC for Community Safety and the MEC for Transport. The good thing is that both meter taxi operators and the Uber operators have all come to us to say, look, we want to comply, but those who are not complying, you must be seen to be acting. And that's what we want to do. Anyone who doesn't want to comply, we are going to ensure that their vehicles are removed from our public transport system, but there are also additional issues we will discuss. As I say, we want to discuss with these operators on additional issues to make sure that the public transport system is operating properly.
There are 166 cases that are currently being investigated and only 28 suspects have been arrested. The MEC for Community Safety, Sizakele Nkosi Malobane, said they are doing everything in their power to clamp down.
As long as there are operations in those areas, our guys will be there permanently. We have increased the number of the board in those areas in order to make a meaningful report or a Gauteng traffic police. We've increased the number of Gauteng traffic police in those areas in order to assist with some of the confusion that is there when such operations are actually happening in those areas.
According to information provided to the media by the MEC for Roads and Transport, Ismail Vadi, there are 2,909 metered taxis operating in Gauteng. Only 500 of those have operating permits. Vadi said they have received 2,321 permit applications from the operating app-based drivers. Vadi also called on Uber and metered taxi drivers to apply for permits.
An important point that must be understood, particularly in this sector, is that you will reach a point of saturation. I mean, you just can't say, open the field, any number of people come there. There's a limited number of consumers or commuters there. And if you oversaturate the market, you cripple the market. That's really one of the underlying causes of conflict in the minibus taxis. On certain routes they are oversaturated and it leads to conflict. So how do you mediate between the two? I think there are two different types of operations. A classical metered taxi has got a ranking facility. So whether it is at the station or the airport or at a particular hotel, the municipality in charge will say that, okay, in this particular rank we need X number of metered taxis based on demand. And as a passenger comes, they board the taxi and they're taken to different destinations. But when they finish, they come back. That's the conventional metered taxi. An Uber-based taxi operator is not stationed in a fixed place. If you're an Uber, you can work from your house. You can park off at a garage. You can park off at a shopping complex. If you think that the market is stronger there, you park off there. So you'll be the nearest in the vicinity of a prospective commuter. And as the demand comes in on their central system, it gets directed to the nearest Uber taxi partner that is there, and you are asked, can you go and load up a particular passenger? So you don't need ranking facilities. Where you arrive is that at the points where the metered taxis are ranking, like say the Gauteng station in center, they've got a facility there. Now Uber loads there and Uber offloads there. And what has happened in the last year and a half, it tends to be in the same space and you're almost tramping on each other's toes. And that has been a serious bone of contention, serious point of conflict. Okay. What we will have to discuss with the municipalities, because these are planning authorities, can we separate, physically, can we separate the points where metered taxis rank and load and offload, and where Uber can load and offload?
British American Tobacco recently hosted the Gauteng provincial government at its factory in Heidelberg. The visit demonstrated British American Tobacco South Africa's impact on the Gauteng economy and how illicit trade threatens thousands of legitimate jobs in the province.
It's an illegal act where people distribute products that they are not allowed to, or where people are distributing products that are not legally produced, and in a situation where some of those products they don't pay tax for it. So it's just an illegal activity which we condemn in the strongest possible terms. We will be from here working with the police, look at increasing the presence of the police, especially around the Johannesburg area, because a lot of this illicit trading is taking place there, and not just for cigarettes, for a number of activities. And if we don't stamp this illicit trading, we will not be able to turn around the fortunes of our economy, because there's a lot of money that is being lost, and that money could be going into the coffers of the public purse, and it can be used to finance things like education, health. We're already facing a serious strain, so we must be able to intervene decisively. This is a big operation, multi-billion rand, that it's injected into our economy. And there is no doubt that as the provincial government and national government, we are interested in where does that money go, who benefits from that money, and that is why we would want to have a further discussion with the company to urge them to organize an open day for our SMMEs so that they present on the opportunities that are available in the different levels of the value chain. It's one of the issues we've raised with them, because we want to make sure that their procurement spend benefits small, medium enterprises, and we also facilitate the new entrants into the economy at different levels.
Currently, we're farming tobacco in Limpopo, in Mpumalanga province and Northwest. It gets processed, of course, in Rustenburg. But we use that tobacco to run this operation here. We buy about 90% of the leaf that gets produced in South Africa. We all use it in our production here in Heidelberg.
What's the economic contribution of BAT within the Gauteng province specifically?
We contribute overall about, in terms of taxes that we pay, we contribute about 14.5 billion rands as BAT in South Africa in terms of the tax collected. But in terms of the jobs that we create over 2,187 jobs, but about 50% of those jobs, specifically about 1,096 of those employees are based here in Gauteng. And in terms of the contribution we're making from a salaries perspective, we're sitting at about 485 million rands that basically gets consumed by Gauteng province.
What plans are there to increase previously disadvantaged citizens within your workforce, as well as increasing the amount of women within your workforce?
If you look at the numbers that we shared with you today, we're already sitting at about 60-70% of PDIs in terms of the staff complement in our factory. And of course, we will continue to advance the previously disadvantaged people and communities through our investment that we make in terms of education, in terms of procurement opportunities and so forth.
What impact has illicit trade had on the business?
It's got huge impact. For example, in the past, I would say 5 years, we had to cut over 600 jobs as a result of illicit. And we're losing about 1 billion sticks every year. And losing about 1 billion sticks every year, if you look accumulatively, government has lost over 22 billion rands since 2010. And this year, we're tracking it should be sitting at about 35%, which is about 11 sticks of cigarettes that get sold out there without paying tax. It's a huge impact. It will affect jobs. It will affect the farming contribution that we make.
So what measures have been put in place to curb the illicit trade?
Specifically from the BAT side, we're busy running a campaign where we're trying to raise levels of awareness about the impact and the magnitude of illicit. Secondly, we're hoping to partner with government, specifically SARS and South African police and other law enforcement agencies to try and root out the problem of illicit. It's impossible for BAT or the cigarette industry to eradicate illicit on our own. We need a partnership because law enforcement agencies need to help us to enforce the laws and ensure that everybody who trades pay their taxes and pay their excise.
And with the Gauteng provincial government specifically, what outcome were you looking for after this meeting?
One, we wanted to expose them to our operations here. Secondly, we wanted them to be aware of the details of the problem we face from an illicit, but also from some of the regulatory changes that are being proposed. What we're hoping that they can mobilize other departments, because now they understand from an economic perspective what's our contribution. Then they can mobilize, let's say, the police in the province, they can mobilize SARS, they can mobilize people who can help us address the problem of illicit. We're looking for a partnership, we're looking for tangible outcome in terms of fighting illicit.
Retired Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke will be the arbitrator in the ongoing dispute between the state and the families who suffered in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. At least 110 psychiatric patients died between March and December 2016 after the Gauteng Health Department terminated its contract with the Life Healthcare Esidimeni facility. Moseneke announced the setting up of an alternative dispute resolution process, which will determine how families of the deceased and those impacted will be compensated.
Our law as it stands, the common law as it stands, recognizes mainly, if not only, patrimonial damages. How much have you lost in rands and cents? And I'm looking forward to submissions from the various lawyers and advocates about whether that law is properly applicable here or will grant equitable redress. So I am raising that question. I'm not saying the arbitration will be limited to that kind of situation. As I said earlier, particularly in a country where nearly half of us, we are told by statistics, are poor or have no regular source of income. So we'll have to go and work hard to find what equitable redress would mean in these circumstances.
Recruitment solutions company Lula Way has a network of job centers across the country and has been facilitating the rollout of more centers in Gauteng under the provincial government's Tsepo 1 Million initiative. With plans to propel the employment progress being made nationally, it recently launched Libraries of Hope, a groundbreaking job creation collaboration with the National Library of South Africa. We caught up with the team in Sharpeville, Sedibeng.
There are nearly 2,000 libraries throughout the country in outlying areas and townships where the kids in those areas, they've had limited access to opportunities. The library's always been a beacon of hope, a beacon of access to information, to books, but now we're going online, now we're taking it to the next level.
The National Library has a lot of projects that we do with different organizations. And the Lula Way one is very, very special because it's about jobs. It's about young people who have, high school education or even a degree, but do not have jobs.
If you have like 6.2 million young people that are out of work, out of 9.2 million that don't work in the country overall, I think that the problem is dire. The problem is a crisis. I think it needs a little bit more creative and critical thinking from all sides.
Walking around with a brown envelope where you need to go from Sharpeville to Sandton to find a job and sort of walk from shop to shop or from factory to factory and hope you're going to stumble on a place that actually has a job available in today's day and age is just ridiculous. And I mean, it's just costly and demotivating and demoralizing and doesn't actually work.
We're opening up job centers, initially at 27 private libraries with the intention to roll out another 300 next year and then to further that and expand on that. So we're opening up job centers on the various library sites. We are going national, so it's in all 9 provinces. And basically the candidates who are looking for jobs in those areas like Sharpeville and various other areas can come into the centers free of charge, have access to the internet and Lula Way's platform. They'll be screened and assessed and we'll make a profile for them, put them on the platform, and then obviously giving access to employers, giving them access to these kids that didn't have opportunities before.
That's the first step, create a better process of entry-level unemployment by creating accessible physical centers in the communities where people could come in, see what jobs are available, register, go through assessments, and make themselves available out there. Step 2 is how do you encourage companies to take on more people? And ultimately, at the bottom of it, it's money. You know, how do you get companies? You need to make it easier for companies, financially easier for companies to take the risk of taking on more young people. And I'm saying this because it works. We've seen it. There's a lot of funding available out there from learnerships, work integrated learning programs, stipend programs of various sorts, and we see it working day in and day out. Once you get people into the job, one of the big issues in South Africa is the fact that a lot of young people go in the job and they stay there for a week or two, sometimes even just for a few days, and then they basically disappear. And what happened? They got demoralized, they felt like they're being abused, they felt like the job description is not exactly what they wanted, the salary is not exactly what they wanted. Sometimes they just decide that they feel it's a scam because they weren't given the contract in the first day of work. Like all kinds of, you know, simple things that can be addressed by basic induction and basic sort of, you know, work readiness explanations and helping them with the training. So what we do is every person that we place, we take them through a one-day induction that explains to them the basics about the job that they're going into and how they need to behave and what they need to do, how they need to dress, and a lot of things like that. And we found that we managed to increase retention by between 12 and 15%, depending on the industry.
The challenges that we face the most is access to some of these jobs, and even young people getting that information, or job seekers actually getting that information. So with the advent or the availability of Lulaway and other job centers or job creating opportunities, it actually assists us because it will be easier for people to simply get onto the website, apply for that relevant job that they are looking for, and be able to partner with government, because as government alone we can't create all the jobs, but we need all partners and everyone out there to be able to assist us. That will actually help us to achieve even those targets that have been set by the National Development Plan of employing more and more people and be able to fight poverty and making sure that our communities actually do have access to resources and even basic things that they actually need in their households. As government, we can't dictate to the private sector who to hire and who not to hire, but if you've got your Lulaway, then it's easy for people to actually apply through their online job application and be able to select the jobs that they actually need.
At the end of the day, we're not just giving access, but we're actually creating jobs as well. Up until this point, we've placed 25,000 people in jobs over the last couple of years, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. The intention is really to make an impact in the unemployment issues in this country and expand on that exponentially.
The Gauteng city region continues to attract people from all over the country as well as other parts of Africa and abroad, shaping its rich heritage and cultural diversity. The Social Cohesion Carnival on Heritage Day saw thousands of people participating in an all-inclusive celebration in South Africa's capital of Tshwane.
As we live today, most of our youth, we forget where we come from.
Heritage is so important because it unites all the cultures, even religions.
We are showcasing our culture as Nigerians here, of Igbo tribe, because our host community, they have actually given us a good leg to play this game. So heritage is what every human being must identify with, because without your heritage, you are a nobody.
As a rainbow nation, we have to understand what other people are doing, who are they, what their beliefs are, and we have to live, what do they say, we have to live harmoniously with each other.
It means actually where people are as one nation and be happy with each other.
All of us are the same, so anywhere you are on African soil, you are an African. So Pan-Africanism is what everybody must crave for. Social cohesion brings all African community in South Africa together to celebrate this Heritage Day.
That's all for this month's episode. Stay in touch with us at cnbcafrica.com or on Twitter using the hashtag IronGauteng410.